Welcome into the Locked On Hoosiers Squad postcast show. I'm your man, Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers, your daily Indiana Hoosiers podcast. Joining me on the postcast is Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football and Brian Smith, an Indiana grad. He's a part of the Locked On family here. Gentlemen, appreciate you being with me. Know it's late. I know the end of the game kind of got drawn out a little bit.
Bit? Jacob, what does drawn out a lot of bit look like if that was a little bit? Please tell me.
I don't know. Hey, look, man, Indiana showed up with, 5 minutes to play in the fourth quarter? We decided to play a little bit. And, look, an onside kick and a 2-point conversion. I mean, look, they fought, right? Whatever. The Cinderella story, the historical season has come to an end. Final score, 27-17. Notre Dame wins. Notre Dame covers. And they move on to play Georgia in the second round. This is our postcast. We're going to have full breakdown. We're going to have reactions. We're going to kind of look big picture. Where does Indiana go from here? Where does the playoff go from here? So all of that here on the Locked On Hoosiers Squad Show postcast. We'll start just with generic and basic takeaways from this. I mean, the score, guys, is going to be a lot closer than what the game actually played out on the field. Spencer, Notre Dame dominated this entire game, start to finish, 4 quarters. Notre Dame just looked like the better team.
I tell you, you couldn't have asked for a better start after a 3-and-out if you're Indiana. You immediately get a deflection to a turnover. You're in Riley Leonard's head. You take the crowd out of it. You're on their side of the field, and all of a sudden you're marching. You're marching down the field. You're like, oh, boy, here we go. And let's call it how we see it, gentlemen. Curtis Rourke stunk tonight. He was straight up bad. I mean, we haven't seen that from him. I would have thought coming from Ohio, he was accustomed to the cold weather, but, he got hit a couple times, and then he just wasn't there. I mean, he was not even kind of I don't know who was playing quarterback, but that was an imposter version of Curtis Rourke to me, because the guy who was throwing, Jacob, you and I were joking about it before we hopped on here. Greg McElroy say, well, it took him 39 minutes and 35 seconds, but this was beautiful.
Yeah, when they hit Greg, appreciate it.
Yeah, when they hit a back shoulder fade for a touchdown to make it 27-17, which I'm okay with, by the way. My final score prediction was 28-17. Missed it by a whole single solitary point. But I just was so bewildered at, not that Notre Dame won and covered. That's what I expected. But that Curtis Rourke was so off compared to what he has been this year. And once you take away that dynamic passing game, Indiana's running game was never going to be enough against that Notre Dame defense, not on the road.
Notre Dame's defensive front ate Indiana's offensive line alive. And they had a couple nice runs early. They schemed up some stuff. They're well coached, but the athleticism difference was pretty stark. And Notre Dame was in the backfield. Indiana wasn't.
It was visible. It was visible, like from the jump. And, Indiana's offensive line has been solid this year. They've had a couple of injuries moving things around. But, Brian, you and I were kind of talking before we came on, was when Curtis Rourke has that empty pocket, I mean, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the country, right? But Notre Dame was just better up front. And we all know that's where the games are won and lost, is in the trenches. And, well, that's where Notre Dame won tonight. They were on Curtis Rourke early and often.
Yeah, I think the most telling play was, I forget which quarter it was in. Maybe it was in the third. The Notre Dame edge comes against the Indiana right tackle, and he one arms him.
Yeah.
There was no hand action. There was no dip. He just kind of held him off. Like it looked so varsity versus JV in the trenches, to your point, Brian. Like it just was never felt like Indiana got any sort of edge. When they didn't lose a rep, that was a win for Indiana's offensive line.
First downs in particular, they lost. I know I sent you guys that screenshot earlier for the game. First down plays. Indiana had 25 for 52 yards. Notre Dame had 29 for 206. I mean, Jeremiah's 98-yarder accounts for that. Even if you take that out, they were still a lot better. Notre Dame just has better players up front. And Indiana, you can only scheme for so long. And I was surprised there wasn't a single run where you thought, okay, this guy might go. Notre Dame didn't miss a run gap bit horrifically. I mean, they got beat a couple of times, but they're just so sound. I was surprised because Indiana gashed teams this year. They didn't have one of those. And then, like you guys said earlier, to start the show, Rourke in 3rd and 6, when Notre Dame blitzes, like their top 3 in the nation blitz percentage, he knew it was coming, and it was right here. It was in his head, and his footwork was garbage. I'm not trying to be mean, but like I got a couple buddies that are coordinators, and even Marcus Freeman talks about this. It's different when you know you're going to get hit. It's kind of the basic phrase. And Rourke didn't want to get hit. That was obvious. I'm sorry. It's just true. By halftime, I'm like, this guy is checked out of getting hit tonight. They're in trouble. And it discontinued in the second half.
Yeah, Indiana, I want to go back to the Indiana run game conversation. I mean, there were a couple of them, right? 8, 10, 15-yard gains. But, Brian, you're exactly right. I mean, there was never he's free. He could go. There was always somebody there. If the gap was hit and the play broke down defensively for the Irish, they were able to make it in the second or third level. And that's what Indiana has done. Those 98-yard touchdown runs that Notre Dame had in the first quarter, Indiana has done that to people this year. And then they've had to load the box. You drop back, let Curtis Rourke throw, and he can dime you up when he's got the time and the availability. That just wasn't the case. And the way this game started, sloppy, interceptions back and forth, had stops, had terrible punts for Indiana where field position was lost immediately. And Notre Dame did what a good team does, right? They took advantage of it. They scored. They had the big touchdown. And you'll hear people say, well, take that away and it wasn't as bad. Well, it was a part of the game and it happened. And Indiana gave it up and he outran everybody, Spencer. He was gone.
Yeah, Brian, you mentioned that Notre Dame didn't have a bad run fit all night. Sure, the scheme from Indiana, which is really good. That whole staff, I love that UCLA hired the co-offensive coordinator because I think this entire staff just did a heck of a job and coached this team to their full potential this year. And yes, Cignetti, coach of the year, deserves the credit for that. But anybody
maybe not tonight.
Well, yeah, we're going to get to the coaching decisions because I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts. But, the head coach has to be really good, but he's got to have a great staff underneath him. But every time it looked like there might be room for those Indiana backs, the safety was there. The linebacker was there. Defensive lineman crashed from behind. Like there was just always a blue jersey with those beautiful gold helmets. I think Notre Dame's uniforms are wildly underrated, by the way.
They put the names on the jerseys tonight. How cool was that? Notre Dame branched out. They branched out.
I thought it looked kind of cool. But hey, that's just me. I'm an Oregon guy, so maybe I'm partial to such things.
I'm just salty. It's fine.
It's okay. I think we all picked up on what was going down in that particular moment. I wasn't going to say it, but you did. So here we are. But, I just felt like for Indiana, the inability, as you mentioned, Brian, to have success on first down almost looked like Curtis Rourke was forcing things, and that caused him to miss a bunch of easy throws. I mean, yeah, he was off his back foot, but he had a guy running 10 yards wide open in the fourth quarter, and he couldn't put it on him. And you even go back to that first interception. Jacob, they're going down in the red zone, and they have an opportunity to throw the first punch of the game. I mean, you've got a huge chance. What was wrong with that play? Only Curtis Rourke. That was it. Yeah. I mean, he didn't make the best read in the world. I see what he was throwing to, but why did that ball sail that badly? He's got the official there. You've got a defender who's trailing the wide receiver. I get what he was looking at. There was an open area, but I mean, that's just a bad throw. That's got to be low and away where only your guy can get it. And that caliber of throw just continued throughout the night.
I put down my first question I had for Indiana was, could they hit 2 or 3 throws like within the normal course, not at the end forcing it like they did? Could they hit downfield shots, not back shoulder fades, but like posts, goes, double moves throughout the game? Because I knew Notre Dame had a really good secondary. They had 0. They had none of those where a guy made a catch over his shoulder, etc. I knew Notre Dame had some DBs, but it was pretty bad. I was disappointed. Surratt caught some balls, etc. But I was disappointed at this lack of separation. And Cignetti even mentioned that at halftime. Like, we got to get more separation. He didn't do a great job of coaching, but the DBs for Notre Dame ate him up for the most part. Cooper, he had 1 target through three and a half quarters, something like that. Like, he's supposed to be their burner. They didn't even throw. He was never open at all.
Right. And it was clear they were –
Sorry, Jake.
They were going to the edge. I mean, they wanted to go the fade routes, and they wanted to go outside back shoulder just to try and get it away from the DBs. But, heck, they played great. Even the young guys played great, and Notre Dame locked it down. You're right.
I think
Moore's a
Notre
freshman.
Dame's.
That's sad, though. You can't let a freshman.
I agree. I totally agree.
I thought Notre Dame's defense played exceptionally well. They looked so well coached. We talked about the run fits, but I mean, in the passing game, Brian, this has been an Indiana staple all season long. Hey, we're going to hit you with the back shoulder throws. They were ready for it. I mean, they were as prepared for that idea as anybody in college football has been that's played Indiana this season, including Ohio State and Michigan. I thought Notre Dame was phenomenal defensively. And anytime there was a mistake made by the Indiana offense, there was a Notre Dame player in the right position to make a play to capitalize.
Notre Dame's defense is probably as sound as it gets. The only one you could argue is Texas. Like, they don't make many mental errors either. Those are the two best, I think, overall. And Indiana, once those back shoulder fades, by halftime they hadn't worked. I thought one of the other questions I wrote down, will Sig come up with some interesting scheme them up plays? He had a zero. I mean, I'm sorry. He's a great coach.
You're right. Yeah.
They didn't have one. Like, they tried to do like a reverse or some different. They didn't try a flea flicker or a double. I mean, at some point, and their play calling on first down was really conservative.
God, it was so bad. And your stat earlier just proves that. I mean, Indiana, we were behind the chains every single possession. I mean, there was just no momentum. There was no flow. There was just, and when you get in that situation, you guys know this, when it's second and long, third and long, a defense like Notre Dame is going to lock up and come after you. And they just start smelling it. They could see it. And they came after Indiana, who, yeah, I think maybe saw the lights and were a little too bright in this situation. And again, we're going to get to the coaching situation and the coaching decisions and the punting and whatever a punt in the fourth quarter was. Okay, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get to all of that, but at the end of the day,
that was
your time is coming, Spencer. Your time is coming. I promise.
I'm ready for it.
I'm sure you are.
I'm ready for it.
I'm sure you are. But at the end of the day, the score again. I will say this as the Locked On Hoosiers guy. The score does not tell the story here. I mean, Notre Dame dominated start to finish, and I don't know. I don't know if the stage was too big, if we just weren't ready. I'm curious and really want to hear what Cignetti says after all of this, and just have what defense does he have? What explanation does he have? Or was it just really Notre Dame had more talent? I don't know.
I did a little check on the rankings for the starters based on like 24/7's composite.
Sure.
Indiana had 1 4-star start on offense and defense. Notre Dame had 8 on both sides of the ball. So that's a pretty stark difference.
Brian, are you telling me, pause for a moment and just think about this concept. Are you telling me that stars matter?
It's a rumor.
Whoa. Jeez, I have been reliably informed so many times by people who know better than everyone who's done this for 30 years that they don't mean anything, as a matter of fact, and they don't matter.
Yeah, I've been covering recruiting since the 90s. It matters. Who finishes in the top 5 in recruiting every year? Ohio State, Georgia, Bama. LSU's usually up there. Clemson's been up there until recently. Which teams dominated college football over the last decade? Those teams.
Bama, Georgia, Ohio State.
Recruiting is 80% of college football. I say it all the time. Indiana hit the inside straight with the transfers, and they coached the crap out of them. But the lack of team speed is one of the things I wrote down in my notes. Indiana is not even in some stratosphere with Notre Dame. Like, they ran a track meet tonight, it would have been an annihilation.
And by the way, just so my comment is clear, like, that's a jab at the stars don't matter crowd, because people come with that retort pretty frequently in the college football world. They don't automatically give you everything. It doesn't mean you're going to be a good team. It does mean that if you have a well-coached team, Indiana, and you have a well-coached team, Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's got better players, if both teams have the maximum level of great coaching, then Notre Dame's going to win. However, if Notre Dame and Indiana both have coaching level at a 9, and Notre Dame's talent level is at a 9, and Indiana is at a 6, that's what you get here tonight. But if Notre Dame's coaching is at a 3, and Indiana's coaching it, then you can go and you can pull those upsets. You can win those games. But this is what happens. If Ohio State were properly coached, they probably have the best roster in all of college football. They're probably the best team in all of college football. But are they always executing the game plan the way they need to? Do they always have the right game plan? No.
There it is. Yeah.
No. And so that's how you get teams that are that talented playing down competition, is when the coaching doesn't match up. But if the coaching is equal, it'll come down to talent.
Well, speaking of coaching, we're going to dive into that more with a lot of the questionable decisions that were made in this game. Indiana falls to Notre Dame in the first round, the first ever 12-team college football playoff game. We'll be right back here on the Locked On Hoosiers Squad postcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers, the Squad Postcast, is brought to you by Rocket Money. Look, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year or for 2025. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. You sign up for something, maybe you don't remember it, maybe you quit using it, but you're still paying for it. That's what Rocket Money is going to help you do. So for me, one of the best features is that subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I just flat out wasn't even using, and I've saved a ton. With their goals feature, you can also set up to have money set aside automatically. I've done it, and you can do the same. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on, rocketmoney.com/locked on. Okay, now it's time to talk coaching decisions.
Yes, give me this.
I'm going to do my best to just put this on a tee and let you go at it, Spencer. I know you're a big golf guy, so I'm just going to let you go.
I love that. I got the driver ready, man. I am loading up DeChambeau style.
Yeah, there's no sand wedge here.
Straight arm, just letting it rip, okay? Curt Cignetti is the coach of the year in college football. He won that in 4 different outlets, including the AP. That is unquestionable, undeniable, the coach of the year. He just had Indiana perform their best season in the history of the football program, one that has the most losses in the history of college football. Nobody's denying that he has won everywhere he's been. We did not win tonight, and I think he deserves a lot of blame for that because this was the worst game he has coached all season long. Based off of game plan, based off of decisions in game, and lack of preparation. You can't no-show like this in the first round of the college football playoff where your team just flat out looks shell-shocked. Spencer, I leave the floor to you, my friend.
Yeah, I think the most mind-boggling encapsulation of how Cignetti came up short tonight was the punt in the fourth quarter, down 17 points with 11 minutes to go. What on God's great green earth could you possibly think was going to happen that was good to help you win by punting the ball? There was no downside to going for it. Because guess what? Even if you say, well, we got to have our defense get a stop. Okay, but look at where you were on the field. You were close enough to no man's zone when you were in that range, and you were close enough to where if you punt, it's like, well, how much success have you had punting tonight? What are you expecting? You think they're going to down it inside the 5? I think the best outcome there, I think literally the best possible outcome was that Notre Dame fumbles the ball, which they had shown no sign of doing because Notre Dame's special teams until the onside kick were absolutely flawless. So I thought that was an agreed. Now, if Curt Cignetti coached a better game, does Indiana win? No, I do not believe that. I do believe the game is more competitive because if you come out and Notre Dame has you go 3 and out and an interception, you go down the field and then Curtis Rourke makes a bad throw, I don't put any of that on Cignetti. Like, Notre Dame is really good. But where the coaching criticism deserves to come in is the lack of adjustments. How was there no shit? How was there no... When you play these games, think about Georgia, Texas back in the regular season. Georgia comes out and is dog walking Texas because they're turning them over. They're not, Carson Beck was having a bunch of turnovers as well, but they're 23-0 at the half. What happened in the second? Sark made some darn adjustments. The adjustments for Indiana never showed up. And that punt was just the final nail in the coffin for Indiana fans going, I guess we have officially given up. Let's wave the white flag and say, screw it, better luck next year. Like, what are you doing in that spot? So those were the two areas where I felt Cignetti, who is obviously a phenomenal coach, I felt he struggled with those two things tonight in a major way.
I was really disappointed at the punt too, but Spencer covered that. I laughed out loud.
My hands were on my head. I'm like, what do we do?
I screamed like out loud. So I screamed. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even the announcer, Sean McDonough, is not a very shy guy. He's a pretty good one. He's like,
yeah,
they're really punting. Like he about fell out of his chair. And he's the guy on the mic. That's not a good sign, by the way. I love him as an announcer. I think he's funny. But here's the thing: like, I know that every coach that I've ever met always thinks they can coach a guy up better than the last guy. They'll figure it out next week. Blah blah blah. It's like he didn't have a secondary idea of what to do. Of all people, I mean, he knows it. Like he'll never admit it publicly. He knew they didn't have as much speed as Notre Dame, as much depth. You got to out trick them a few plays here. That he didn't even try. Is my complaint.
Right.
If you throw a double pass out there and it fails and you're down 17, 20 points, okay, whatever. But to just run draws, like there was a third down. Like
the 3rd and 10 draw.
What are we doing here? It's midfield.
Oh,
like,
we haven't even mentioned the 3rd and 5 halfback direct snap. Haven't even mentioned that.
I'm okay with that. If you're 100% going for it on 4th down, I would have ran a different play to run the ball. But
that's what I'm saying. Run the ball.
It's just.
Oh.
That was some Freddie Kitchens logic.
Yeah, he did a horrible job tonight.
I've seen a couple Gus Malzahn references in the comments so far. So Gus Malzahn.
Oh boy, I know Gus personally. I'm not going to get into that, but that could get ugly in a hurry.
Well, so the other thing is, Cignetti, Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong. He's not the play caller, right?
Right.
So I understand.
I mean, he has the override switch.
Any head coach has the override switch. So did he send in, and maybe they called 2 plays to Curtis Rourke and said, hey, here's a pass, but if you get this look, run the ball. You got to be able to recognize that on 3rd down and 10 with your season on the line, you have to ride or die. I know Curtis Rourke wasn't good, but you have to believe at some point he's going to step up and make a play. You can't, you can't take it out of his hands.
15-yard line? I mean,
yeah, like it was super late in the game, but eventually they hit a back shoulder. Eventually they scored a couple touchdowns. Yeah, it was way too, but you have to believe going into a game that your star players are going to show up. And I get that he was struggling. We talked about it earlier. He stunk tonight. But who are you going to rely on? You're going to go with a halfback direct, and I'm fine kicking the field goal there, but not as much when your 3rd and 5 play call is halfback direct. Like,
against that defensive line?
Well, the funny part about that is, think about it. Name a guy in the Big Ten that is quote unquote less mobile than Rourke. Maybe Drew
Will Rogers at Washington is not a mover.
They're similar.
Aller's not a bad example.
Well, he moved over like he was
moves.
Running back. That's the other part of because you knew what was coming. And I'm like, that's going to trick anybody? Before the snap, I'm like, this is going to be a disaster. Nobody's afraid of Rourke at running back. That play call in general, that scheme, it's different if you have Alabama's quarterback moving over to run. You're like, oh, that would have scared the hell out of me if I was
Rourke with a knee brace, by the way.
Yeah, Rourke looks like an old man when he has the football and takes off. Like he has no business.
Football for a while.
I don't know if he would honestly beat a 40-yard dash time of 5.0 by somebody. I doubt it. He's pretty slow. And they move him to running back and go direct snap. It's one of the worst play calls in Indiana football history.
Says the IU grad. That's all you need to know, right?
I still as bad as that was. The 3rd and 10 to me is still worse.
Oh,
the 3rd and 10 to me is the same vibe as the punt in the 4th quarter. You're just saying,
white flag. Like
we're done. We're not doing it.
They said it on the broadcast. They were like, "This isn't a regular season game. This is it." Like
they did a good job of pointing it out because usually they try to like oil it and make it. Mike's just. They said ka-punk, ka-punk, and they put it in reverse. They're like, what are you doing? They were right to do so. About ESPN's
I agree.
100%.
I agree.
I mean, I wanted to see IU show themselves as an aggressive team. This is one of the most conservatively called games. And you're talking about a guy who does nothing but watch football that I've seen in any capacity, IU or otherwise, high school, JV, NFL, anything this year. In a college football playoff game.
It looked like at times to me, Jacob, that Indiana, after getting initial pushback from Notre Dame's defense on how they wanted to play offense, just abandoned it completely and said, we're going to become something else. And I never felt like that had a chance to succeed. Like, yes, Notre Dame's defensive front, really good. They were dominating the offensive line. Why do you believe that you're going to suddenly overcome a 3-possession deficit running the football all the time? I don't know. I want your thoughts on that as a Hoosiers guy, Jacob.
It was very reminiscent of the Ohio State game. For anybody that watched that game, right? Indiana
without the special teams blunders, though.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like the beginning was different, and Indiana's own and self-inflicted wounds weren't as bad. But just lining up and playing straight up football, it was very reminiscent of Ohio State. And look, it's a similar thing. Ohio State and Notre Dame have some of the most talented rosters in the country, especially compared to what Indiana put on the field. We get that, but you're absolutely right. Indiana is a good running team. They've run the ball all season long with 2 dynamic running backs who could be in at any given time. They get punched in the mouth early. They go away from it, and then they're down by multiple scores. And it's like, oh, now you're absolutely right, Spencer. Now let's run the ball. Now let's try to get something going. It's like, no, that's too late. You can't decide to do it when you're down by 2 scores in the fourth quarter. You needed to do that in the first half, and Indiana just didn't do it. And I don't know what the game plan fully was, but they didn't execute that game plan, and you saw it. And give a ton of credit to Notre Dame's defense too.
Well, in the first quarter, they averaged a little over 4 yards per carry. Okay, and they had a couple of those nice runs.
Right.
Out of the final 3 quarters, how many of them did they average 4 yards or more carry? And they stuck with the exact same game plan. They had one quarter, they averaged like two and a half, and they didn't change anything. Sometimes you just got to admit, okay, we're just not blocking this as well as we had hoped. We're going to have to shift. Name a time that you thought, especially with the passing game, there was anything. They went to look pass, which is essentially a slant, and they threw the back shoulder fade again. I wanted to see, can you throw over the top? I knew it'd be hard. Notre Dame has NFL DBs. That's not a news flash. They didn't even have an attempt at one, really, that was a straight fly because Notre Dame's DBs ate them alive so bad. Part of that's not Rourke's fault. I'll give you that. But they didn't scheme up anything. There wasn't a single play that you go, man, he is wide open. They got this one.
Yeah.
Not even on a screen.
So that was the next thought in my head. Can someone correct me if I'm going crazy? Did Indiana execute a single screen pass in the entire game?
They had one wide receiver screen for like 7 yards. But that's it. And here's the thing. Again, like Notre Dame, unless it changed at the end, I don't think so. They were top 3 in the nation in blitzes. Every now and then you're going to get bushwhacked on one of those. Guys don't step in front of one, whatever. But you should also house one because of just the raw mathematical numbers here.
That's why I brought it up.
And they didn't really try it. I remember going through the first quarter or so, I was thinking, this is your chance because they're Notre Dame is straightforward. We're going man up. My dude is 6'2", and they got one. Like, they got exactly what you're looking for. But you didn't even try to screen them then? Again, I was really disappointed with the game. I would have screened Notre Dame to death because you knew you weren't going to run by them. Yeah. Everybody knew that.
Yeah, I mean, when you face a blitz-heavy, man-heavy sort of defense, your answers are usually, my guy can beat you one-on-one, which is what Indiana came with first. And that was clearly a punch that whiffed entirely and even came back and hit him on the other side of their shoulder as it hooked around. Like, it was just, it wasn't there.
360 when they did it, yeah.
But when you keep getting the pressure, I'm not saying you call a screen every other play, but it just felt like they weren't even thinking about it. Like, it never crossed their mind, hey, they're going to come with 6. If they go man cover 0 across or even cover 1, and we go tunnel screen with a receiver, we've got to pick up a block on one guy. 100%. And then all of a sudden you're one-on-one with a safety in the field. Like, it just, that's part of the coaching adjustment thing I mentioned earlier when I was talking about what the staff didn't do today, is it just felt like there was no counter. It was keep bashing your head into the wall. And we all know insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And there was no real different result.
A lot of RPO where I thought Rourke made good decisions at times, other times not so much. And you just put everything in his
But that's the RPO
hand.
game. You're not going to go 100% on decision making.
Right. And it actually built a little momentum. And then you had some bad calls on third down, yada, yada, yada. A lot of that conversation we just had, gentlemen, was Indiana's offense versus Notre Dame's defense. But there was a whole other flip side to this, too, where Notre Dame's offense went on 6, 7, 8-minute drives, and the Hoosiers had no answers. We'll have that for you when we continue on the Locked On Hoosiers Squad postcast show. This episode of Locked On Hoosiers, the Squad postcast, is brought to you by Game Time. If you watch Locked On Hoosiers, you know I tell you all the time, Game Time is my go-to ticketing app for sports, music, comedy, theater, you name it, and they've got it. And their feature that they have going right now, it's called Game Time Picks. So rather than getting on and scrolling through hundreds, if not thousands of different tickets and trying to find the best one, Game Time's going to do it for you. They get out the fluff to show you the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. You pair that with their all-in pricing. You toggle the feature. It shows you your price up front, no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. My favorite part is the seat views. Any seat at any venue, you click on it, you see exactly what you'll see when you show up, and there's no surprises. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. All right. Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football. Brian Smith, Indiana grad, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your man, Jacob Goins, host of the Locked On Hoosiers show, free and available to you each and every day, Monday through Friday, however you get podcast. And I want to flip to the other side of the ball here, where it was Notre Dame's slow, grinding offense versus Indiana's defense, which they told us several times, guys, that it was the best rush defense in the country, and it was statistically. In Indiana, we have been great at stopping the run all season long, but Notre Dame did what they wanted to do, and this was, I'll start it off, this was the worst tackling performance I have seen in football in years. And Indiana has been so good at those outside one-on-one boundary plays where it's a screen, it's a crossing route, whatever. And Indiana has hit those guys and made those open field tackles all season long. But tonight, Brian, they just couldn't make a single stop at all.
You know, Jordan Love's right hand is eventually going to get really sore from signing autographs, from people taking a picture of him throwing the IU defender to the ground, like literally. That play in particular was just, And I've met Jeremiah before. He's a nice guy, pretty easygoing. But the way he played tonight, he played like a man possessed, trying to take over like an entire city. He wasn't much fun, but except for the long run, they held him to like a yard per carry.
And they were saying he wasn't even 100%.
No, he's not. He got beat up a little bit in the SC game, but tell the Indiana defenders on the 98-yard run. By the way, Love will be a first or second round pick. He's only a sophomore, by the way, so good luck to the teams to play next year.
Heisman.
Yeah, he's going to be in the race. But
he's 100% in the race.
Yeah. But the thing that drove me nuts, and this is why running quarterbacks, and I gave Indiana less of a chance in this game, Riley Leonard go get 3 yards. He would escape a sack and throw it away. It's all the plays that you don't really think about it, but instead of like when they did get pressure on him, it wasn't 2nd and 15, it was 2nd and 10 because he threw it away or he picked up 3 or 4. Rourke can't make those plays. Notre Dame's pass rush, obviously way better, and they schemed it up because they got a bunch of guys beat up. And they even lost 2 guys during the game. Riley Leonard is the quarterback, but on the other side, they lost their D tackle and they lost Bryce Young. And even with their backups, they were getting pressure on it in the run game and all the tackles and stuff. Like Notre Dame made those solos. Like Jake was talking about, Indiana couldn't tackle. Notre Dame made solo tackle over and over. The 2 comparisons, it is so far off. It just drove me nuts. And like, you have to win one-on-one. That we can bitch about Cignetti all day, and we have for good reason. But you still got to make plays too.
Yeah.
Indiana's defenders, now Jeremiah Love, again, he's going to play a long time in the NFL. But they missed on Riley Leonard constantly. Jadarian Price made some guys miss. Faison, he's not real big and he's quick, but they killed Indiana after they got beyond the line of scrimmage. Killed them.
Jacob, did it look to you like in the second half, Indiana's secondary in particular got really soft with tackling? Like they didn't.
Oh, they didn't want to.
They had a Curtis Rourke element to them. They didn't want to get popped.
Bam.
Like it just didn't. It looked like they were
time to go.
They were not trying to impose their will. They were trying to not take a stinger because it was so cold.
They were scared.
Yeah, that's how it looked. There was one play in particular. Riley Leonard, it was a straight drop back pass. He wants the slant over the middle. Indiana drops a safety down, takes it away. They've got a short hitch on the outside. They throw it to him. It should be a 3 to 4 yard completion. Two guys run out there to the perimeter towards the Notre Dame tight end, and all of a sudden he's lunging forward to get 8 or 9 yards. And I went, why was that? They went over there
out of the way.
It looked like they were just trying to push him out of bounds or pull his flag out. Like it just never felt like they were trying to set the tone because the tone had been set upon them already.
Correct.
And they never had the ability to reset it. And they looked like they were searching for a momentum play, but rather than going out and making one, Indiana was waiting for one to happen.
And guys, this is a defense that has a first-team All-American in Aiden Fisher in the linebacker core and another All-American honor with D'Angelo Pons, who got active early, right? Picked off in the first quarter, and I was like, here we go. Indiana's defense showed up to play.
Here we go, Jim.
And I think even with the final score of 27-17, I still think Indiana's defense played well enough to keep them in the game. I mean,
totally agree.
Notre Dame scored, but they didn't do anything crazy. It was the long, just drawn out drives that they went on where Indiana's offense went 3 and out or punted, in the fourth quarter. And then Notre Dame got the ball back and didn't give it back very often. But Indiana's defense still did what they had to do. Now, they shot themselves in the foot a couple of times. I don't know. How about a very late push out of bounds on Riley Leonard? That was a horrible play, not a bad call. I think it was the right call. I really do. And I'm an Indiana guy, and I think it was the right call.
I thought it was the right call. I do struggle with it, though. Like, I understand why that probably needs to be a flag. Here's where I struggle with it. And you can think whatever you want about this next take, but
here we go.
The Patrick Mahomes effect is so ridiculous. Because the flags that he gets are, it's obvious. We all see it every Sunday, right?
I take it you're not a Chiefs fan then, huh?
Not in particular. So what has happened is the quarterbacks are getting an extra level of protection in college and especially in the NFL, but it has migrated its way down to college football as well. Every time I see a quarterback fake run out of bounds and pick up more yards, I want him ejected from the game. And Mahomes does it all the time. He's not the only one. There was the infamous Kenny Pickett fake slide. And ESPN was like, what a play by Kenny Pickett. I'm like, are you kidding me? There should be a 15-yard penalty. The whole thing should be called back. You want to emphasize
that was cool. That was cool.
No, it's not cool. It's not cool at all.
Right after that.
No, no. You are so impossibly wrong. I can't even believe those words just came out of your mouth. Was it a foolish play? Yes. However, I watch quarterbacks do this all the time. Leonard had nowhere to go, which is why it was such a poor decision by the Indiana defender there. I do understand why those guys make those hits from time to time because quarterbacks say, oh, I'm slowing. I'm still going. Woohoo! 12 more yards. Yeah, let's go. Like, it drives me insane. Anyway, end of rant.
That's what happens, though, when you give a quality team an extra opportunity. They capitalize. Notre Dame is like a bowling ball attached to about 20 switchblades. They just roll down the alley and just slowly cut you up. You give them an extra 15 yards, and that gave them first down at like the 10 or the 12 or whatever. I'm like, you gave them all the momentum. You hit their quarterback late. They're ticked. You're going to bleed more. Like everything that Marcus Freeman could have pulled out of a hat, you gave him on one stupid shove going out of bounds. As the saying goes, never give the official the chance to make that call. Then it doesn't matter.
By the way, do we all remember what happened after that sequence?
I don't remember.
Indiana gets a stop to hold them to a field goal try, trailing by 2 possessions, 17-3. And then on 4th and 6, Marcus Freeman with the dumbest idea that anyone could have concocted on a day in which Indiana had no hope of orchestrating a 90-plus yard touchdown or an 80-plus yard touchdown drive. He goes with the fake field goal, and it's not even a pass. It's just a straight merry-go-round spin run to what is probably a backup tight end. And then Cignetti called the timeout because he didn't like the look. Understandable. Marcus Freeman got bailed out because if that play, that felt like the momentum play Indiana kept trying to find, that they kept waiting for, and it never showed up. That would have been it, because they would have looked up and said, you tried to sneak it by us and that didn't work. And now we've got the ball and it's still a 2-possession game. We got juice. But the timeout arrived, and you get why, but that was one of those moments that made me go, what is happening here?
I didn't like the call, but where he landed, if the play would have happened, it would have been Indiana ball at like the 4-yard line. They're not going 96 yards. And Freeman knew that.
True, right. But when you have the opportunity to get a 3-possession lead, when your defense is lights out, I have no idea why you don't take
17
that.
Is the magic number in football, because that's 3 possessions, 100%. I'm like, what do you do? I'm like, wow. But they still would have had to go 96 yards. It was a dumb call. But
and if you go back and listen, you can hear the whistles faintly. The crowd was doing their thing all night. And Notre Dame was on offense, and they were still loud. I mean, it was crazy. But you can faintly hear the whistles. I think the whistle blew as that play is happening. You just couldn't tell with the action and the broadcast and everything like that. But don't forget, I mean, this game was, I don't know, drunk. You had that. You had a blocked field goal. You had interceptions. You had punting. And again, I'm never going to live that down. I'm never going to let that die. And the dumbest decisions I've seen. But this game was... It was exciting. It was boring. It was weird. It was just all of that combined at the same time. And so I posed this to you and the people in the live chat on the Locked On Hoosiers YouTube channel here. Are you more impressed by what Notre Dame was able to do, or more disappointed that Indiana's just didn't show up?
That's a great question. Spencer, I'm going to let you go first on that one.
Screw you, man.
Yeah, sorry to throw that on you, but...
That's a tough one.
I have an answer.
I lean impressed with Notre Dame. I have been a Notre Dame fan for the last several weeks, however many, because I think they've quietly been playing at a national championship level, but because they haven't had the highest of profile games, no one is really fully bought into it. And is this offense going to kill you through the air? No. But are they improved throwing the ball? Yes, I think they are. And you see the way they run with Riley Leonard and with Love. It's explosive at times, but it's always enough. It's enough. And then you look at that defense, and they were fantastic. 17 points, that's not representative of how well the Notre Dame defense really played tonight. I thought they were incredibly well coached, well schemed. They took away what Indiana wanted to do. The Hoosiers failed to make adjustments, or maybe they tried to make adjustments and Notre Dame just had the adjustments to the adjustments in real time. Either way, and one way to think about Notre Dame right now is they had a dominant win against Army. I thought they would. How's that win looking right now?
Army can't throw the ball.
Army can't throw the ball. Army is also Army also went into the American Conference Championship game and blasted Tulane. It was not close. Then they get upset in the Army-Navy game, of course. Yes. But I'm not saying Army is a great team or playoff caliber or anything like that. But we can at the very least say Army's a good team. I think the triple option makes people view the service academies differently. If that were Tulane, who were 11-2, we'd say, oh, that's a good football team, because then people are dancing up visions in their head of beating USC in the Cotton Bowl a couple of seasons ago, pre-12 team playoff.
That's a logo thing too, Spencer.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a fact.
100%. So they have been playing really good football. And was Indiana a great team? No. Were they a really good one? Yes. I think Notre Dame made them look bad. I think the weather got to Curtis Rourke. I think the Notre Dame defense jumped on Rourke early, makes a couple of inaccurate throws, and then that defense is just not one that you find your footing against if you don't get it early. So I go 60-40 credit Notre Dame more than blame Indiana. Because, the coaching mishaps we've talked about, the fourth, and if they go for it, are they winning the game? No. If they don't do a halfback direct or a draw on 3rd and 10, are they winning the game? No. It's more competitive. That's what we're talking about. Because I felt like from the start, even with the interception, Notre Dame was prepared and ready to go from the jump. And I think they were winning this game 10 times out of 10.
I don't disagree with anything that Spence said there, but the one thing I'll point to again, Notre Dame, the one game they lost is you kept it close by not making mistakes, but you also had a few key play calls. The Northern Illinois game, obviously one game Notre Dame lost.
Lose that game?
It's still amazing. It's one of the weirdest losses.
But they did lose it. Don't let them forget. They did lose.
They did. The point is their coach took a few chances here and there. He didn't have a great quarterback and all that stuff. Matter of fact, I think he just transferred, I believe, to Illinois, by the way, to be like a backup or something. But anyway, the point is you got to at least challenge Notre Dame to make Riley Leonard feel uncomfortable. They were so horrendously conservative the final 3 quarters. 5 yards, check down. 5 yards, check down. Like they didn't have to do anything. And Indiana just played cover 2 all day. I watched, there was the 2 broadcasts. I watched the overhead shot in the first half. And I'm like, if you're just going to do this cover 2 stuff and not put an extra guy in the box, that's what Notre Dame wants. Like, that's exactly what they want you to do. So I'm going to give the edge here to Cignetti screwing this up with telling the defense, like, you got to be more aggressive. If they beat us over the top, that's fine. Don't let them run the ball and kill us with key plays. And that also, playing back, again, Riley Leonard had just a handful of plays where he took off and got valuable first downs or got away from the rush. He annoyed the crap, and then, of course, hit the deep ball. That the deep ball shot was tremendous.
Oh, it was beautiful.
But I think Indiana screwed up as much, if not more, because you have to at least put pressure on them, and they never did. Like in the middle of the second quarter, I said, this game is over, barring Notre Dame just having a pick 6 or something. And they were so conservative, they never did. So it's grotesque to me how the play calling went.
By the way, Brian, nice random transfer portal name pull. Ethan Hampton, NIU to Illinois this offseason to be the backup because Luke Altmaier is back.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. I bet he's probably getting some NIL to go there, and good for him.
That's some sicko college football knowledge right there.
We only get the best of the best here on the Locked On Hoosiers Squad show. My quick answer to my own question, and look, I love Curt Cignetti. I love what he did this season. This was a magical, magical year. We're going to get to a final kind of recap here in just a few minutes, but when you talk as big of a game as he does, including today on College Game Day, where you talk about beating top 25 teams and how you're here to win it all and you're here we're not here for moral victories. We're here to win the thing. And you show up and you just don't perform well in any facet of the game. Offensively, defensively, it was okay. Special teams was horrific. I mean, you can't talk the talk and then not walk at all. I mean, just look.
They didn't even crawl.
They just laid down and rolled, I think. I mean, it was just horrible.
Stop, drop, and roll, baby.
Stop, drop, and roll. There was nothing on fire. What was it, 15 degrees out there? And
their play sheet was, because they didn't have one, is what it looked like. It's like a bunch of infants running that sucker.
Yeah. So that's why my answer is Indiana. I'm more disappointed in the Hoosiers than I was impressed with Notre Dame. And Notre Dame deserves a ton of credit, all the flowers, whatever you want to give them. They looked good. I just expected more from Indiana. It was still a tough game to win. You don't have the talent they do, the coaching staff, whatever the case may be. For the season to play out like it did, and for you to get punched like you did against Ohio State, and yes, the toughest game you played so far, I just wanted to see a little bit more in your second opportunity, your second chance to play a big-time team with a heck of a lot more time to prepare for it, guys, and that's what you rolled out there with. I'm more disappointed in Indiana than I am impressed with Notre Dame. But now where do we go from here? Notre Dame moves on. They take on Georgia, and Indiana's magical season has come to an end. We'll do a recap. Where do the Hoosiers go in the rest of the college football playoff? Final segment coming up on the Locked On Hoosiers Squad postcast. This episode of Locked On Hoosiers, the Squad postcast, is brought to you by the College Football Playoff. It's that time of year. The College Football Playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT, their sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins coming up tomorrow on Saturday, December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Leading into our first matchup, it's SMU, the Mustangs, taking on Penn State, the Nittany Lions in Happy Valley. That game's at noon. Then Clemson is on the road. The Tigers looking to upset Texas, the Longhorns at home in Austin, and a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and on Max. He is Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football. Brian Smith, IU grad, a member of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jacob Goins. And so we'll start with Indiana. Where do the Hoosiers go from here? We know Curt Cignetti, long-term contract, signed it for the next 8 years. Indiana's paying him. They've got facilities upgraded. They're getting more NIL money. They're trying to be competitive in the portal, high school recruiting, those things. But, guys, this was the best year in the history of the program. In year one of a brand-new head coach. So far. I like that.
That's the best year so far.
Best year so far. Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is that's the expectation you set year one. That's tough to that's a tough bar to get over, guys.
Easy.
Yeah, but look at their schedule next year. I mean, it's.
Did Indiana have an easy schedule this year? I haven't seen that at all in the comments.
No, haven't heard.
384 times.
what I wonder about for Indiana, number one, what's the plan at quarterback? Curtis Rourke, I believe, is done. He's like 29, so he should probably think about moving on. Whether that is a continuing a football career or not, I don't care. But everybody reaches that age. So I think that for Indiana, this was still a resoundingly successful season because what you have now done is you have rebranded the image of your program. Brian, you and I talked on Locked On College Football earlier in the summer about Juju Lewis, and at the time, he was taking visits to Auburn, Colorado, he was committed to USC, and then there was one to Indiana. And do you remember how you and I talked about that?
Yeah, I said there's no way in the world he's going there. I went to Indiana, I grew up in Indiana.
Exactly. It was viewed at the time as a joke visit, a throw-in, a right? That's how everyone looks at it. Now, players who want to play at the highest level, they're going to look at Indiana and say, well, clearly that guy knows how to coach, and they just need better players, and I think I'm a better player, and he thinks I'm a better. Well, I'm going to go to Indiana. Yeah. He's building something there. You have rebranded Indiana football. And by the way, can we give Whiner of the Year award to Lane Kiffin? Because an hour ago, he quote tweeted Notre Dame football's Riley Leonard or something from Notre Dame. And Lane Kiffin said, quote, really exciting competitive game at CFB playoff with the eye spectacle emoji. Great job with 2 exclamation points.
What a child.
I have loved Lane Kiffin for a while for his Twitter antics. He has gone way too far with
Guess
this
who
stuff.
doesn't beat that Notre Dame team tonight? Ole Miss doesn't win
Ole
that
Miss
game.
does not beat that. No, do not.
Alabama does not beat that Notre Dame team tonight. I'm just letting you know right now.
I know the SEC's undefeated in hypotheticals, but that he's still doing it. Like, it gets attention. Okay, that's his whole point. Beat Kentucky at home, Lane.
Ooh, somebody needs to retweet that.
Spencer,
I think his name is Spencer McLaughlin. How the Kentucky Wildcats doing? Just anything like that would because while Ole Miss had a great season, I watched that. They were so lethargic in that game because he didn't coach them well enough. They deserved to lose to Kentucky at home. And Kentucky stinks.
And there's a reason he's sitting at home and Indiana was not. So
that's what I mean. Like he failed his own team, so whatever.
Yeah.
But
so Brian, where does Indiana, in your opinion, where do we go from here? Right, you're again long-time Indiana grad, you're a long-time Indiana fan. The best season we've ever seen, and Spencer's, I guess his questions are legitimate, right? Quarterback and a lot of guys, you're losing a ton of seniors, a lot of transfers that came in from James Madison. You're losing a handful of these guys. Where does Indiana go moving forward? Not just next year, but for the foreseeable future.
Well, I'll do it in 2 parts. Quarterback's the most important position in all of sport. I don't think many people are really going to argue that know anything about football. They got TJ coming back, the quarterback. Like, he's an athlete. He played a little bit this year when the work was beat up. They should be good there. I still would like to see him get somebody, and I have no idea what they have behind him because somebody else really played.
Yeah. But
they got to make sure they're constantly having guys come in, good players, etc. How they finish up the portal, because now their guys can leave. They get an extra 5 days or whatever, but since it ended this early, I guess it doesn't matter. Guys can go in the portal. Who do you lose? Do you pay some guys to stay there, underclassmen, like you and I were talking about earlier, Jake? They got a whole bunch of guys that are junior seniors on this roster.
Yes.
This is a veteran. So it's twofold. They had a better class than they normally do, but it's still nowhere near where it needs to be. Okay. I cover recruiting for a living. I'm a recruiting fanatic. Anybody doesn't believe me, ask Spencer. He texts me all the time, ask about people. There's a reason. This is all I do is I watch film. Indiana's a long way from where they need to be speed-wise, depth-wise, and size-wise. Those are 3 really good categories to be better at. So they need to do better recruiting at 25. They did better. Okay. But now in 26, you take it even another step, et cetera. But they got to hit the home run. And this is what I don't know. Are they going to use some of that basketball NIL? Because basketball obviously is not doing very well.
I've already seen fire Mike Woodson stuff in the comments. So that tells you where Indiana basketball stands.
Okay. I'm a lifelong Indiana basketball fan, but he's got to go. The point is still he's got to go. The point is still the same, and he's an all-time Indiana basketball player and all that stuff, but they might want to shift it a little bit. And some of these guys, maybe they're going to throw some of their cash in with Cignetti. For people that don't know, like the facilities in Indiana are legit. And the town and all that, I know I'm biased. I grew up in Indiana, went to IU. It's not a hard sell if you get kids on campus there. It's dope. So that town, it's party school and all that.
Amazing.
But if you really want a serious education, you got one of the best business schools in the world. There's all kinds of reasons to go there. And now they actually have a freaking football staff, except for tonight, that did a really good job. I want to see what they do with the 26 kids and then a few elite kids from the portal, not just a bunch. And I know that Sig did it. He was smart. He did a great job with this. He took a bunch of guys through his theory that were proven, even if they were FCS or weren't Power 4, that proved themselves at the college level that they could handle the rigors on the field, off the field, whole nine. Because how many times did you hear, Jacob, well, Indiana might have a locker room problem. They're getting big. We didn't hear any of that stuff all this year. That's why they went 11-1. They had the right guy. Yeah, they really were. So that's important.
Yes. Spencer.
Yeah, point of order. Kurt Cignetti on punting, quote, "I didn't want to punt, but we were doing nothing on offense, and our defense was still fighting," end quote.
Yeah, I'm going to let you just answer your own comment. I'm not going to touch it. That's
so.
That is not what I wanted to hear.
We were doing so the offense wasn't fighting. Is that the implicate? Like the offense quit?
Yeah, that doesn't sound good, bro.
That does not sound good at all.
I'm just going to give you a little hint. On Monday, your podcast should be 100% to start about that quote. And I'm sure you're going to anyway. Matter of fact, you should probably do it on Sunday. Give everybody a day off. Just do a 15-minute segment just on that quote and call it a day.
Yeah.
We're
that's
hammer
not.
That, Hoosiers fans, don't you worry. So
by the way, what did we say earlier? It looked like Curtis Rourke got hit and didn't want to get hit. Looked like Indiana got punched in the mouth and didn't want to punch back. Boy, that's an indicator right there. It is. Well, our defense was still fighting. Okay. By the way, who has a better chance of scoring, your offense or your defense? I am not an analytics nerd, but I believe the answer is your offense.
I mean, going into the fourth quarter, the stats were still in favor of the defense, possibly, until you had garbage time scores and onside kicks and whatever. I mean, Oh, that's so bad. Oh,
Not good.
why did you have to tell me that live on the podcast?
I was hoping that my NIL stuff was going to be the end of the show. It's like I would just would a nice, this is possible. Oof, that is a body blow.
Yeah, that one hurts. That one hurts. Really quickly before we get out of here, that's where we think Indiana needs to go. What about the playoff, right? Again, don't want to go super deep into this. You've got Notre Dame, Georgia now in the second round where Carson Beck will not play for the Dogs. The way Notre Dame played tonight, I think they can absolutely beat Georgia in the second round.
100%.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Are you kidding me? Gunnar Stockton against that Notre Dame defense?
There's one point of order here. Until I know, and we'll not get the correct answer, is Riley Mills healthy? He ate Indiana's offensive line alive, and then he had friendly fire, hit himself just below the knee.
Yeah.
If he doesn't play against Georgia, they're not beating Georgia. He's going to be.
You think he's that big of an X factor for them?
Yeah, like he's the guy that nobody blocks one-on-one. 300-pound guys that are athletic are not fined too easily around right now. Like the NFL likes those guys, and he's that guy. So if he doesn't play, they'll just hand the ball off and play field position, play bully ball. They got better athletes than even Notre Dame does for the most part, especially with that. Was it Jalen Walker, whatever that linebacker for Georgia? Holy crap. Yeah. But that ought to be a war. It'll be a 10-point game or less. That'll be 24-17, something like that one way or the other, would be my guess.
I think it'll be a good one. I really do. You know what would have been better though? Georgia, Indiana. But that's okay. That's all right. Maybe next year, right? Because that's how that goes. Notre Dame.
By the way, Indiana's schedule is workable, but it is noticeably harder. They have to go at Iowa, at Oregon, at Maryland, and at Penn State.
Oregon and Penn State on the road's rough. That's rough. But the other games
at Washington too, or no?
Nope, there's no Washington on there. You switch between Oregon and Washington, and you get Washington at home this year and Oregon on the. Now Oregon will not be as good next year as they are this year, but they will still have some talent.
Do you have insider information on them, or?
I have a few thoughts here and there. They will be resetting at quarterback and receiver.
Got it.
But the offensive line is going to be sick, so at least there's that.
Got you. Well, again, Georgia will get Notre Dame. The Irish beat Indiana 27-17 in the first round of the college football playoff. An expanded college football playoff historic season has come to an end. Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On College Football. Check him out wherever you get your podcast. Brian Smith, IU grad, and also a part of our Locked On Podcast Network. Gentlemen, this was as crappy as the game was and as disappointing as the result was, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys joining me on this, the first postcast of the college football playoff era. And we've got more coming up tomorrow with other playoff teams around the Locked On Podcast Network. So be sure you check those out. Be sure, if you have not already, to subscribe to the Locked On Hoosiers YouTube channel. Be sure you turn those notifications on, all of that. Or if you're listening afterwards on the audio side, follow us on there, turn those notifications on as well. For Spencer McLaughlin and Brian Smith, I'm Jacob Goins. Until next time, stay safe. I'll talk to you later.